So a very interesting thing happened in the past week. The Milwaukee Bucks decided to strike and not play a playoff game against the Orlando Magic. Now, after that, the strike grew and every team decided not to play their games on that day. And then there was an emergency meeting of, the entire NBA crew behind the scenes after this happened. And it was really one of those moments that felt like, okay, this could be the start of something amazing. Something that's somewhat unprecedented. I mean, when you look back historically at big political moments in sports, of course you think of Muhammad Ali protesting the Vietnam War. You think of what Colin Kaepernick did, I believe it was in 2016. And then this really felt like, okay, wait, is this the beginning of a new chapter? And was there a snowball effect where there's no looking back now? Now, that night, there were even conversations about, hey, maybe we cancel the rest of the season. It's been a tumultuous season so far. Obviously, COVID, interrupted it. And then the NBA worked hard behind the scenes to basically set up what's effectively a COVID bubble where they're in a hotel and they're in a hotel or a couple hotels, I believe, in Orlando, Florida, and they've kind of, made it so that people get tested regularly. It's a little COVID bubble. So it's already been a tumultuous season, but there were murmurs about, hey, maybe the entire season's going to get canceled. Apparently, the Clippers and the Lakers led by LeBron James, they were kind of pushing for, hey, we're done here. We're not even going to play the rest of the season. And the main reason that was floated was what happened with Jacob Blake. The killing, or he's been paralyzed. He was shot and now he's paralyzed. But the shooting of Jacob Blake and the fact that, the officer who is responsible was not arrested. So behind the scenes, the Milwaukee Bucks were trying to get the Wisconsin DA on the phone when they were refusing to take the floor. And I don't know if they were successful in that, but when they had that emergency meeting that night about how they're going to proceed, something interesting happened. How Barack Obama helped convince NBA players to end their strike and return to play. In a call with Chris Paul, who I believe is the union head in the NBA, and LeBron James, Barack Obama urged NBA players to return to the court and resume the playoffs. So what Obama said to them is, hey, I respect what you're doing. I think it's wonderful. You're standing up for issues that you care about dearly. But you should play, finish the season, and the NBA will commit to forming a social justice commission. A social justice commission. And that apparently was enough to get the Milwaukee Bucks, apparently the Lakers and the Clippers, who were on the side of let's just end the season. That was enough because they respect Barack Obama for them to say, okay, we'll step down, we'll return to play immediately, and we'll form this social justice commission. Now, what do we make of all this? Well, first and foremost, let's get out of the way up front. They respect Barack Obama, but perhaps the people who are looking up to Barack Obama as their guiding star on these issues, they don't understand his actually rather complicated record when it comes to leading the country. They don't understand that this is also the guy who waged an illegal drone war that killed 90% innocent civilians. He killed a 16-year-old American boy, Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, without a trial. So that, again, is massively unconstitutional. Now, I don't have to sit here and go through everything in his record, but let's just say the dude did not legalize marijuana and did not free every single nonviolent drug offender. So in many ways, he inherited a broken, racist criminal justice system, and he didn't do enough to redress the grievances, now did he? So I get it. They look up to him. They view his guidance as something that they value. But ultimately, the guy is not fully on board with the spirit of this protest and this strike and this movement. So really, you're trusting somebody who, a large part of his record has been effectively being a left gatekeeper. Hey, you can go this far, but you can't go a step further. And that's the history of the new Democrats, the neoliberal corporatists. It's the, hey, we're the effective, efficient, triangulating status quo managers, so, don't worry, we'll never fully commit to changing the status quo, to reform. But we will give you some sprinkles here and there, some crumbs of change to make you think that we're the good guys. And apparently that facade, that veneer, is something that really convinced the NBA players, and so they trusted Barack Obama, and with that trust, Barack Obama effectively stopped them from really fulfilling their potential to actually bring about change. Now, so that gets to the conversation. What the hell should they have done? First of all, listen, credit to them for even doing a single game strike, because the fact of the matter is, it really was not incumbent on them. They didn't have to do it. It's very easy for people who are in these lanes to say, I'm going to stay in my lane because this is my job. This is what I'm paid to do. So I actually think the intentions of what they were doing is commendable. And I have nothing but respect for them for even having the nerve to pull the trigger on this, even if it's just for one game. So I think the intentions are there. And I think they definitely mean well, but if you're going to dip your toe in this water, you should go all the way in. Now, something that could have been effective, something that could have worked, is the NBA, every team in the NBA, they get together, they talk it out. Honestly, it'd be even better if you somehow have connections to other of the major sports leagues and you talk to them, the NFL, the MLB, NHL, so on and so forth. And if you got together and planned just a professional sports strike until certain demands are met, I think there's a really good chance that those demands will be met. Why? Because, Americans love our sports. We love our sports. And there's also no replacing the best in the world. You can't just have, the people who are in the minor league step up, because it's not the same. If you want to see LeBron James, you got to see LeBron James. It's not, it's not like somebody in the minor leagues, no disrespect to the people in the minor leagues, because that's hard too, but it's not like they can scratch that itch. They just can't. So, and this gets to a bigger point, which is, guys, good intentions without leadership is just virtue signaling. And that's what ended up happening. The NBA had all the good intentions in the world, but they lacked the moral vision, the goals, and the leadership. So effectively, what they were trying to do here was destroyed, and they just ended up virtue signaling, which, by the way, then makes people hate you more. Because then people are, oh yeah, you're really impacting change. You sat out one game and got Dickie McGeezax accomplished. I hope you feel good about yourself. Oh, do you feel good? You wanted to say racism is bad? Wow, what a bold take. It's so easy to mock people who do that because virtue signaling is effectively just masturbation. I'm a good person and I want to let you know that I'm a good person, so I'm going to say I'm a good person. Do you think I'm a good person? And that's something that really turns people off. So what they needed was, they needed the clear goals, they needed the leadership, and they needed the commitment in order to really make this work. So they went into it in sort of a half-assed kind of way, even though the intentions were good. And now the results are nothing happened. So what could have been? Well, there should have been a league meeting where they sit down and say, what do we really want? What exactly are our demands? Obviously, the number one thing on their mind was arrest the person who shot Jacob Blake. Okay, that could be your number one demand. That's fine. But if you're going to stop there, that's not going to change anything, because there's going to be another Jacob Blake, and there's going to be another Jacob Blake, and there's going to be another Jacob Blake, and there's going to be another Breonna Taylor, and the list goes on and on. So they should have sat down, said, guys, we're going to come up with a list of demands, and we're not going to get back to playing until these demands are met. And there's a lot to put on them, I know, but if you're going to strike one game, well, why not go further, and why not actually bring about the change that you want? So they could have made a list of even the Campaign Zero reforms. There are people who are working on this issue of criminal justice reform and have dedicated their lives to it, and they've come up with some damn good ideas. So what are those ideas? Number 1, end broken windows policing. Number 2, community oversight boards for the police. Number 3, official limits on the use of force, clearly defined guidelines. Number 4, independently investigate and prosecute cops who commit crimes. Number 5, have community representation in the police. Number 6, have universal body cameras that film the police. Number 7, have, new de-escalation training where there's an emphasis on it. Number 8, you end all for-profit policing. Banned, gone, never again. Number 9, you demilitarize the police. They don't need weapons of war. Number 10, fair police union contracts. And then the most important, which is not in the Campaign Zero list, but I think is the major defining issue when it comes to race relations in our time, is you have to end the drug war, free the nonviolent drug offenders, and legalize recreational marijuana. You have to do it. Because the statistics are clear. The drug war is enforced in a racist way. And you have mass incarceration, which is effectively the new Jim Crow. And so there's never going to be racial justice unless you free all the nonviolent drug offenders and you legalize recreational marijuana. Because the drug war is the fuel that allows police officers to continue to over-police certain communities and exploit them. And that creates a giant rift between police and communities of color. So if you get rid of the fuel, then the issue overnight gets so much better. So what if they had an NBA meeting, they sat down, they said, here are the things that we're really calling for when we talk about change, okay? And then they settle on 3 of them. Let's say, free the nonviolent drug offenders, legalize recreational marijuana, arrest the cop who shot Jacob Blake. Those 3 things. And they say, we will not step foot on the court again until these things are done. And then oftentimes all you need is a spark, guys. And so people see this spark and they go, you know what? I need to do my part as well. And then what if you have one other sports league sign on to it? And they strike. What if the NFL says, you know what? We got some right-wing billionaire asshole owners. We hate them. We're going to strike in solidarity with the NBA, and we're going to sign on to that list of demands. What do you think would happen, guys? What do you think would happen? See, power concedes nothing unless you force it to. I mean, something that we know is going to happen eventually anyway, the legalization of recreational marijuana at the federal level. If you take away Americans' pro-sports, which we love, until that demand is met, I think you're speeding up the process. I think you'll probably win on at least one of your demands pretty soon. So that's what could have been. And what I'm begging people to do, and this isn't just the NBA, because again, I give them credit because their intentions are good. But I also mean this for people who are in the streets protesting and who are out there trying to make a change. For the love of God, it's not enough to rely on slogans, to rely on platitudes, to rely on cliches, to rely on virtue signaling. It's not enough. Because then really what you're asking for is nothing. You're not asking for anything. So what I'm begging people to do is have a strategy and have clear goals. Because then all this stuff is not in vain. Then there's a purpose. Then there's meaning behind it. But if you don't have a strategy and you don't have clear goals, really you're just blowing off steam. And you are virtue signaling. And you're telling me, I'm a good person. I'm a good person. See, my shirt says Black Lives Matter. My sign says Black Lives Matter. Aren't I a good person? Aren't I on the right side of history? Maybe I should go berate some people to say these words also. That changes nothing. That changes absolutely nothing. Now, if you're out there and you're saying, hey, we're going to be out here every single day until you free every nonviolent drug offender and legalize recreational marijuana. Oh, now we're talking. Now we're getting somewhere. Now there are clear demands that need to be met in order for your movement to cease. That's how you bring about real change. And I think the biggest problem is that everybody's got these good intentions. Everybody means well. They get right up. They're so close. They're right there. But then ultimately it all comes to naught because people don't even know what the hell they're asking for. They don't know what they're asking for, which means there's a total lack of leadership and vision and clarity. And then, all you do is breed resentment. It's like there's a poll that just came out not too long ago. In the wake of one of the recent shootings, support for Black Lives Matter was insanely high. I forget the exact number, but like plus 22 or something like that. New poll just came out. Support for Black Lives Matter is plus 0. Why? Because now all people see nonstop on the news is like, in some instances, protests, but in other instances, yes, rioting. And they see protesters and they're like, I don't even know really what you're asking for, so it just seems like now there's utter chaos going on and you're part of the chaos, so now I don't like you. This is what people are thinking. I think that you could have maintained that very high favorability rating if, first of all, if everybody, remained peaceful every step of the way, but beyond that, if there really were very clear, defined goals. And then add on top of that, if police are aggressive against peaceful protesters, we know from history, this is what happened in the civil rights movement, that makes normie America, the moderates in America, that makes them sympathetic to the cause of the peaceful protesters because they see the cops as acting in an evil way and they see the protesters as making reasonable demands, and that brings more people to the cause. So I do think that this NBA thing is just a great example of how a lack of vision and leadership and clear defined goals means everything can come to naught. And then when you add in the fact that they're relying on a guy who's effectively undermining them, Barack Obama, then here we are. And we didn't get much out of it. And everything else they're doing is similar to, what the NBA has already done. Hey, write Black Lives Matter on the back of some jerseys, equality on others, people, how many more on others? Like, people pick these phrases, they got Black Lives Matter on the court, and they feel like we're doing something. But what do I always tell you guys? The establishment, the status quo, the powers that be will always cave on the symbolism first because nothing hinges on it. They're making concessions without making concessions. What you need to do is organize and strategize and have clear goals to have them actually make concessions. And unfortunately, we're not even close to that yet.